So, hello everyone, I guess everything is working, so yeah, basically today we will continue on the theme that we ended up on the last stream, and basically it's a drawing basics. As I said, if someone is new in here, or is just watching the stream after the fact when it happened, my name is Eric, and it's my pleasure to greet you in here. So in the last stream we have drawn these guys, so we did this guy, this fella, and also we did this fella when I was showing you how to draw everything from the top, from I would say a bit easier type of a perspective. And today we will continue drawing a little bit more simple architecture, but we will draw things actually now in the perspective. So I guess maybe we will tackle this guy because it looks kind of fun, especially the environment is really fun and all these things that are happening in here with the road and whatnot. It looks cool, and also there is a bit more of an environment. So yeah, it looks cool. And the solids in here are not really that complex. So I guess we will do a drawing based on this guy. It's a bit more also complicated because we have some ellipses and everything in here. But before we start, and hello Miko, I would like to show you some things why the perspective actually matters and why it is really important to have. So, going with this one, because this will be our reference for the different perspective lenses with the different cameras, different perspectives, field of views, or yeah, it was field of views, it was the name. Sometimes it will greatly mess up your drawing, and I would like to show you also why, because this is a problem that is not really obvious for someone who is just a beginner, and sometimes it might even bring some problems for more advanced guys. So a really cool thing about this photo is that it's really simple, and that pretty much straight away we can see a horizon line, because if we can see where the sky meets with the sea, it basically means there is an horizon line. So it is kind of skewed in here, as you can see, so most likely the photograph was not taken completely, the apparat was not completely parallel to the ground. So we should make a little bit more adjusting by rotating the canvas a bit, but it does not really matter that much. What really matters, what I wanted to show you, is the fact that this whole church really fits into the perspective, into a really simple perspective. Unfortunately, as I can see on the stream, you cannot really see my brush panel, because I'm not showing a whole screen, only a Photoshop. But as you can see now, I just took a brush that pretty much gives me the entire perspective grid just with a click. So basically this is a brush, and it is a really handy tool to have if you are going to draw a perspective, because you don't really need to worry about all those lines to meet in one point. You will basically get everything done for yourself. And also, as you can see, by a pretty much pure accident, I made a perspective that is already matching the thing that is in here. So as you can see, every single line, every depth that we have in here, fits to this perspective grid. So it gives us a really good information on the vanishing point. So basically this is the first of our vanishing points. We will be using only 2 vanishing points. The second one will go to the left. And the second one actually is way more interesting, because it is outside of our canvas, and usually this scenario is way more interesting because it's simply a bit harder, but it's nothing that is pretty much impossible to work with. So as you can see, the second brush that I have is basically, hello Henrik, oh, I will add some goblin or whatever. Yeah, but later, now we can add the second vanishing point. So basically what I want to do is I want to match the horizontal line with the perspective, and I simply just want to drag those points in here so the perspective will match. And a really good idea, before you do this, it's a really cool thing to change the object into a smart object. So basically you press right mouse button on it, select convert to smart object. You cannot unfortunately see it, because even if you do something like this and then you apply the transformation with the smart object, it will like remember what you have actually done. So using smart objects for perspective grid, in my opinion, is a really nice thing to have. And also a really cool thing to do is to actually change a color of everything of our perspective grid, because if we have everything black, it will be way harder for us to see. So I highly suggest to you to use something like, it is like blue or pretty much whatever, to pretty much have two vanishing points colored in a different manner. And the way I did it was to apply a hue saturation. It works by pressing Ctrl U, and then in here you just play with the sliders and you can colorize your perspective grid. So as you can see, if I turn off the photograph, this is our perspective grid for this drawing. And by doing, let me just mute my, okay. And by doing something like this, you pretty much can study the perspective, because everything is set now. But what is really important while you are actually drawing anything is how far away the second vanishing point will be from the first one. Because if we take like a red color, we can easily mark our first vanishing point is in here, but the second one will just be somewhere in there. It will be on this line, on horizon line, but really far away to the side. And it's not really that obvious what type of a perspective you should be using, because as you can see, I can duplicate this guy and I can do something like this. And how will I know that this is not like proper perspective? Because I have two vanishing points and everything, but it's not really like looking proper. It looks like really weird and looks really skewed, especially if I will like, well, bring down this point in here and in here. Even just by looking on the squares that are created here just by the grid, it looks extremely distorted. It looks like really fast in a sense. This is kind of a really dynamic perspective. So this is also a thing that I would like to discuss with you today, because it's just a grid before we even start drawing anything, to quickly show you how you can approach drawing a perspective grid, like in a no-brainer type of a way. So basically, this is our canvas, and basically we have a horizon line, and let's say we have like a vertical line in here. Let me actually use tablet, 90° in here. And let's say this is our first vanishing point. So as we did previously with the brush, we can do something like this, just by hand. It will also work if you don't have a brush. If you can, just ask questions right away. If I will be able to answer them, I will gladly answer them, so no problem. You can ask them on Twitch or on YouTube, it does not really matter. But I will answer to the questions when I actually finish explaining what I wanted to explain. But now we have, like, as you can see, this perspective. And the really cool thing in perspective is, if this is our like stick, let's say A and B, the same stick is in here. It's our A and it's our B. And if we take a middle point of this stick and a middle point of this stick, this will actually like be on the same height. If we take like quarter of a stick and quarter of a stick and we connect them, they will be on the same line. And this is the thing that we will be using to actually create a perspective grid. So the easiest way to approach it is to decide what type of an angle you want on the top. Usually I prefer working on the side where I have like more space available, because it allows me to be a little bit more like precise. And what I want to do is, now I have a stick in here, I have a stick in here. So let's say we have a stick, our A and B in here, and we also have the same A and B in here. This is our A dash and B dash, I guess. So as you can see now, I can divide like this guy well, I can divide this guy into halves. In Photoshop, you can just like create any type of a line, just duplicate it, and later just stretch it. So, and now as you can see, if I connect the middle points, this line will go perfectly to the exactly same like vanishing point, exactly same perspective in here and in here. It works exactly in the same manner. And what is cool in 2-point perspective, that x's in here, x, x, and x are always constant in like height, because the 2-point perspective do not really foreshorten verticals as 3-point perspective does. So this is a thing to keep in mind. And also this guy in here, these are also x's, but they are just smaller because they are like further away from us in the perspective. So for example, if we were to draw this guy in here, this line also in here will be an x, but in a different place in the perspective. If we will place it in here, okay, this is why it looks kind of weird. The best part of it is if I just copy, let's say, these guys below the horizon line from the left, and I will copy these guys below the horizon line in here. I can also connect them under the horizon, and it will basically make the same thing. These guys will go to the exact line a bit longer, and if I will manage to match the points, it's a bit harder to do, pretty much constant, like just like that. It's a really simple method. Basically, it's just like copying the points, and that's pretty much all. We could have the second vanishing point way closer. So for example, one vanishing point, let me use a brush in here because it will be a bit easier to show you. Or let's make it even closer. Let me remove the excess to this guy. So as you can see now, we have like a really weird looking perspective, and now it really looks kind of better manner what I mean. But as you can see, the bottom part is like getting completely distorted. So this is why you never should put like two vanishing points close together to each other. But now, if we were to draw anything in this perspective, it will look really weird, and it will look most likely really off, because this is our canvas. Basically, the square is our canvas. But if we were to trim the canvas, and if you would say like this is our like canvas at the moment, the red square, now as you can see, if I zoom in into it, now I get pretty much exactly the same perspective as I do in here. So basically, this is how you decide what type of a perspective you should have. Like this is the only way that I think it works. Basically, what perspective you are using kind of depends on the factor of how much do you trim or how much do you crop from your perspective. So if we were to like choose this type of a perspective, as you can see, it will look really normal. Like it won't be that dynamic or whatsoever, because the lines are pretty much almost parallel. We could like even crop it way more, so this way it will be even like more normal perspective, because as you can see, this is our perspective grid right now. It's not like a high quality perspective grid because it's just pixels and everything, but this is pretty much the way you decide on the perspective that you want to use. So let me connect these guys together. And yeah, basically the thing that I showed you right now is a really simplified explanation of different focal lengths. So basically, the closer vanishing points together are, the more dynamic shot you will get. The further away there are in relation to your canvas, the more like subtle, the more natural looking perspective you will get. And yeah, this is pretty much how it works, if you ever wondered. And with this drawing, let me just turn on everything that we had in here. This is pretty much a no-brainer, because if we were to draw this guy, now I would simply, well, but not with this brush. Well, I will simply, let me just trace the main solids, so it will be a bit easier to compare them later. Boom. Whoops. So let's say, and also as you can see, this is also a cool way to study perspective and everything, because it will also allow you to understand the geometry way better in a manner that is kind of impossible to do so without this type of a drawing. So as you can see now, I can pretty much draw whatever I want, and because I have like a really like dense perspective grid, I don't have any problems whatsoever to find all the informations that are even hidden. So let me hide the photo. This is pretty much the solid as I would see it in this perspective. But if I were to, so let me just combine everything in here, and let me just trim it a bit so there will be like less lines. It will look like this, and soon I will answer your question, Rockcraft. But if I were to draw in a similar scenario where the second vanishing point will be way closer to the actual drawing, so let's say the second vanishing point will be like in here, and it's a bit of a trimming needs to be done to make it look nice. And let me change the brush. Basically the same shape will look like this. I kind of try to go in a similar manner outside of the horizon line and everything, but as you can see, like straight away, this thing is way more dynamic. It gets really distorted really quickly because simply like my two vanishing points are way closer to each other, and this is what is causing the perspective to kind of distort quite a lot. So depends on what you are drawing or what your goals are with the drawing. You can like use it to your advantage, because if you want to draw something fast like a car or whatever, you can use like a really dynamic perspective. But if you want to draw something like calm and everything, then you can like use a perspective that is not that dynamic. So as you can see, two vastly different drawings will be created, and thus this really depends on the perspective that you will use. I got a little bit confused in here, but yeah, but pretty much this is how it works. And this is also why you should be even aware, like you should be at least aware of this fact, because sometimes if you are trying to draw something and you will mismatch the perspective, then most likely you will end up with a drawing that looks completely different but is still like properly drawn. So this is properly drawn because it is set in the same perspective that this guy is. Also this is properly drawn, but this has a different angle, this has a different perspective, and it looks just different. It just looks a bit weirder. And a really cool thing to show with this type of perspective is if we draw a human in here, basically we'll match it to some like line in here, and we will try to draw him in here. So we will know that this guy in here will look like this, and this guy in here will look like this, because they simply follow the same line. But the cool part is if you are drawing like a human on the with the head on the horizon line, you can pretty match them wherever you want, and basically the perspective will take care of itself, and it will allow you to place the characters properly. But you can see even that character that is like really close to the church or to this box is not like that different in size. It looks really natural, while in here someone who is like next to this side of a church or to this side of a church, the size difference between these two guys will be really vast. It will be like a huge difference. So if we were to even draw a human that goes a bit closer to us using still the same line, as you can see, oh, it should be a head in here, then it will cause the human figure to like really quickly get really like huge, because this is a dynamic perspective, so everything gets really big quickly and really small really quickly. Also, the cool thing is the mountains in the background. In this case, even the high ones will look like this, maybe look like this. In this shot, they could look like this, because simply the things in the background won't get like really small really quickly. The further apart the vanishing points will be, the less of a change in the background in terms of the size will happen. But I guess this will be the end for the intro of the perspective, because as I said, for today I would like to draw this thingy. I even used to draw it when I was like learning art in Domin in the school where I teach right now, but I completely don't remember how it was named or how it was called, so you could just write in the comments if you know what this place is, but I guess it's a really popular place. But question, what's the better and more effective way to practice drawing in perspective? Traditionally on paper with grids drawn by me, or digitally in Photoshop with perspective grid brushes? Understanding. To be honest, I would say everything in terms of perspective should be done on the paper, just by hand, without using any rulers whatsoever, because this way you will be able to practice line weight, precision, pretty much just like you will build up. I need a word, wait a minute. Not bravery. You will build up confidence in the drawing, and also it will be significantly harder for you to draw by hand, so you will learn faster because you will like have more challenges to draw. In the Photoshop, I would say learning perspective is really hard, because even though I know how the perspective works and I don't have problems with it on the piece of paper, I have problems with the perspective in the Photoshop because it pretty much allows me to draw everything perfectly. There's like the margin of error is in a different, like works a bit differently if you are drawing by hand, and if the lines, instead of being like perfectly straight, is like a bit tilted or just a bit wonky, it will give you a little bit more natural feeling to it, and it's easier to understand it, what is happening. So by drawing like by hand, you will make some mistakes, you will learn how to kinda rework them, and because of this, most likely you will end up learning in a bit quicker manner, and you will not be depending on the tools as I am right now in the Photoshop, because I can do this just by pressing shift. If you want to just learn how to draw a straight line, you can do it, but on the piece of paper it's way harder. So let's say this is a straight line drawn by hand. Well, but on a small tablet it's a bit harder to do. If I were to draw it quicker, then there is no problem. But it just comes with the practice. I would say if you want to draw in perspective, if you want to draw in Photoshop, just practice drawing also in Photoshop. I guess whatever works for you. But I would prefer traditional medias over digital for learning perspective. But going back to this, guys, instead of like trying to make an exact copy, I will simply try to go into the full screen mode, and I will simply try to draw this environment. Actually, just by the eyeballing the whole perspective thingies. So I won't stress that much about like making a copy. I will just simply try to understand what I am about to draw. In here, as you can see, the horizon line more or less is like in a 1/3, so I will place it in a similar position, but it is not really required. The lower you will place your horizon line, the less of the ground you will have to draw and the more sky you will have, so you will see the building a little bit more from the bottom. So let's say this is our horizon line and this is our horizon line, and in this scenario it will look like this, and in this scenario it will look like this. So in this case, as you can see, like we could say the basic shape will be like this. In this case, the basic shape will be like this, and it will also matter. Usually we place the horizon line on the height of the human figure, so it is also a bit easier for us to understand the proportions properly. And if you are going to draw a temple or whatever, having doors is a really cool indicator of scale, because now I can pretty much say a human figure is more or less like this tall. According to this building, something like this, maybe a bit smaller. I would say trying to get as close to the reference photo as possible is a good exercise, but also trying to understand what you are actually drawing also is a good exercise. So you do not necessarily need to like make a carbon copy of the thing that we have in here, for example, but you need to make something that is relatively close to it. But if your goal is to practice like drawing carbon copies, like drawing everything perfectly, then yeah, just go for it. But as you can see right now, I will kind of try to eyeball the whole perspective thingies. So let me just grab not vertical lines, let me grab horizontal lines, and I will simply like put the lines, change the opacity a bit lower, convert them to the smart object, and I will simply try to create something that is a bit closer to this guy, because as you can see in here, and also if you are like not sure what type of a perspective you have, just draw on the photograph. Like, this is nothing bad with it actually. You are allowed to not be sure what actually is going on the drawing. So as you can see, the horizon line is perfectly on the size of this, on the head of this guy, and this is pretty much one of the vanishing points. It's slightly like off the canvas, and the second vanishing point actually will also be slightly off the canvas, but a bit further away. So just by doing something like this gives me already a good idea on what is happening with the perspective and how to approach it. Boom. And as I said, usually also when I am drawing something, I am also usually using a print. So I will print the reference that I'm going to use, and I'm drawing on the reference. So the things that I have done like a few seconds ago with the perspective, I will also do on my reference. So as you can see now, well, I can simply go out with our perspective grid outside the canvas, because this is like digital media, so I can do this. It's not a problem. And I can basically create without any problems one grid. Everything by using the distortions. Hello Serku and hello Jakub. And basically this is one of our vanishing points. If I want, I can like move it a bit more to the right. I can kind of like expand it to the side, and if I see the line on the horizon is not really like fitting, I will like slightly rotate it. So everything should be nice. Everything should be nice. And also now I will just take the second set of the lines, and I will simply try to like create a perspective grid, a second vanishing point for this painting, for this drawing, and I will only need to match it so the horizontal line in the perspective will like match the horizon line. And this is pretty much the way you can approach making a perspective grid, and that's all. I would say this is a really simple thing to do. And usually if you like spend 10 or so minutes on actually preparing a perspective grid, then the whole drawing most likely will be just way easier, because now what I have to do is to simply like fill in the grid, and I don't really need to worry about anything else. So pretty much if I were to draw anything in the perspective, this is the way that I would start doing a drawing. So a human figure in here will be like this. A human figure in here will be like this. I usually add some human figures in the different places, so I have the general idea of a scale in the entire piece. And now I can start drawing the stuff that I want to draw. The problem with this building actually is that it is perfectly square. So in this case, I really should like construct a perfect square in the perspective by using some ellipses and everything and whatnot. But it will take quite a lot of time, and I don't really feel like constructing everything on the ellipses. So I will simply try to eyeball the proportions, and I will try to make sure that my drawing looks at least okay. And in here, as you can see, at the moment, I would say this is like a total no-brainer, because I only need to connect the dots. Usually I try to draw everything like from the inside out, so I can see the insides of the building, because it gives me a general idea if the proportions, if the whole drawing is going in the nice direction. And the higher you are able to draw your things, so let's say the further away you are from the perspective grid, the bigger chance there is you will see some mistakes, because the precision simply will be a bit better. So as you can see right now, this line kind of suggests me the edge in the background is in here. So a small problems with the perspective, but nothing too severe. And this is my like main cube, I would say. This is like the base of this building. Let me bring this to the top. Oh, let me bring this to the top so you will see it without obstructions. And this is all on the separate layer, so I won't have many problems with the actual drawing. And now what I will do is I will simply add like the lines to tell me where the middle is of each wall. And this is also where the fun pretty much begins, because now I will have like a shitload of lines that are overlapping each other, and I simply need to constantly be aware of what is where. And I really like this in drawing, because it kind of flexes my mind. I have to think actively, I have to think on what I am actually drawing, and where I am in the perspective, which is nice. I always like this part of a drawing. Whoop. So my drawing is getting kind of huge, I would say, but this is also not a problem. To be honest, I could draw like a huge box, like to extend this whole box, and simply cut out the pieces that I do not want to appear in the final drawing. This is also a good approach. And also this is like a really puristic, I think it's a word, a really purist way of drawing, because I simply try to draw everything by hand. And yeah, that's pretty much all. So by doing it like this, I give myself the opportunity to actually train all the perspectives and everything. And as you can see, it's really hard to see anything like clearly in the drawing, because this is, like as I said, a lot of lines. Also, bringing down the background a bit to make it a bit darker will greatly help your eyes, because this thing tends to get really, like, maybe not boring, but it can be really exhausting on your eyes if you are like focusing too hard on thin black lines in the drawing. So as you can see now, I got like the basic structure. This is the height of it. To basically determine, to make sure the height for these rooftops will be exactly the same in the two, in the front and in the background. Basically what I will do is I will take this point, follow the perspective for it, go back with it, and we'll use the middle line pretty much as a reference. So I am using the edge of the whole construction of the whole building to draw this guy. And now I can pretty much start drawing everything in here. In the perspective, I can add rooftops to it. Now I got kind of lost in lines, but nothing too terrifying. Boom. And right off the bat you can see my perspective is a bit different from what I have in the reference. Oops. And I don't really feel that this piece is coming together nicely, so let me just rotate it. And let me try to draw everything a bit cleaner. If you have problems seeing everything, just bring down the perspective grid, because this is like the main problem. And I feel the problem is somewhere in here. Like this box in here is should be a bit more to the left. Yeah, the cool part is that I can pretty much change the entire thing by just scaling it down, so it won't be that big of a deal. And now also in here I can see that my roofs are way too high. It's way too tall, so the roofs should be a bit lower. They should be a bit shorter. And this whole frontal part should be also a bit lower. So I'm going like this, and I'm just cutting off the excess of the things. And also this is like a beauty of digital. I can like rework pretty much everything without problems whatsoever. So it just, as you can see, following the lines, nothing bad really happens. Also in here there will be a really interesting part where where the roof actually intersects with the cylinder. So yeah, I guess it will go a little bit more like this. And again, this is like not a drawing that I want to like make perfectly fine. Usually on this type of stuff I will spend way longer if I were to draw like something a bit more complex, but when I'm just like doodling, I'm just trying to get the general idea of the perspective. I won't really like try to go too perfect with all the perspective type of a thing. Is if it's close enough for me, it will be like enough. I see there are some problems with the proportions and everything because the roof looks kind of skewed, but this is pretty much everything that I have a problem with. And I kind of feel the best way would be to kind of scrap it whatsoever and start from the scratch. And sometimes this is pretty much what you have to do. If you don't feel like it's coming together nicely, then just scrap it and draw it once again. So what I will do right now is I will start with like a huge box again. So let's say I will go with it like this. And I will simply try to now cut in the box instead of like building from the small parts from it. And right off the bat, I can see the perspective looks way nicer on this. Recommend to everyone, because this is also like a smart way of utilizing some tools for the perspective and everything. So basically what I do in here is to the edge. It's not completely to the edge. Now as you can see, I have this guy, and what I can do is to duplicate him or to change him into the smart object, and I can apply this shape to each wall. Now it will pretty much ensure me that everything in the perspective is placed nicely. So basically in here now I am avoiding kind of the problem of drawing in the perspective, because usually if you are going to draw something that is way more complex, you will be using some 3D to help yourself. But if you are drawing something that kind of requires quite a lot of precision, because this is like a really uniform building, I would say, then I would use tools like this. So now, as you can see, it's a way easier method and it looks way nicer. Because now what I really need to do is to kind of just combine, well, I'm using tricks and still mismatching things. Okay, the top part needs to match. And now everything matches really nicely. So as you can see, yeah, Photoshop is cheating in a sense. But still, I would say drawing this type of a thing in traditional medias is way easier than actually drawing it in Photoshop. Because in this case, I do not really want to like copy the image, because if I were to copy, I could just paint and like match what I am painting with the things that I'm seeing. But in here, I kind of want to make sure that I understand what is actually happening. Yeah, I had to rework it because it was kind of skewed in here. But now the thing is that I can turn off the symmetry, and if I connect the top parts, as you can see, this is the middle of the whole building. And now if I were to connect the middle part of the big cube, as you can see, everything matches in the middle. So I know pretty much everything is almost perfectly drawn in the perspective. So now I need to just go with this guy. Yeah. And there is some stuff happening in here. I'm not really sure what it is. Okay, there's like a small structure that kind of looks like, whoops, that kind of looks like this from the top in here. So I will ignore it first, but later I will add it so it will look nice. Whoops, okay. And now what I want to do is I want to find the crease in here. This is basically like the edge. It does not look right. I guess the front part is a bit wider. Let's see. I guess mine will be simply a bit different. And now when I know where this point is, how it's connected to the roof, I mean, doing both is fine. Like, you need to copy some things to see how they work in the perspective, and you also need to like study the geometry of some things to understand actually the shapes of it. So like doing both is completely fine in my opinion. There's like, the important part is that you are drawing and not that you are like trying to keep it perfect. If you will try to keep it perfect, like really perfect and really tight, then most likely you will not really enjoy what you are doing, because you will not enjoy it. I guess that's pretty self-explanatory. But as I said, you simply need to kinda like find a golden balance. At the beginning, if you are just drawing, then everything is completely fine. So okay, let me add the top part in here. Yeah. And now let me add this small guy on the rooftop. So basically what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to follow the angle of the rooftop to add geometry to it. So basically if let me show you, if I have like a surface going like this, and then I have like another surface going like this, if I were to extend them, they will meet at some point, and this will create a crease in here. So basically this will be how they look like. And if I want to add a geometry to it right now, basically I will follow the rooftop. Well, from this point I will follow the angle, I will follow the angle, I will go vertical in here to the perspective. The angle will go a bit more like this, and basically where they meet, it will allow me to add a geometry to it. So this is basically what I want to do in here. And on top of everything, there will be some ellipses. So I know the whole thing will be like this wide and this wide. So basically this is the width of the top part. And now I will be lazy and I will take ellipse tools. Boom. And the basic idea with the ellipses is quite simple. So the closer they are to the horizon line, the thinner they will get. So if we will start with the ellipse in here, it will be like really thin, and the more to the top we will get, the fatter it will basically get. The exact like distortion of the ellipses will change depending on the perspective that you are using, because, and also this is the reason why I actually should start drawing these guys from the ellipses by constructing the box and then adding them. But it will be like a shitload of work, and I don't really enjoy doing this type of things in the Photoshop. I can, and later I will, when we will be going to a little bit more complex topics. But the thing for the starters is just at the moment when you simply start doing this type of things, try to kind of like match it like just by eye. And especially since my proportions kind of differ from what I have in here, I will kind of need to adjust it, because I want it to be like in here more or less. A bit more to the top it will be a bit thicker, a bit more to the top it will be a bit thicker, more to the top it will be even more thick, and this is pretty much how I'll approach it. And now also this will kind of show me the problems that I have with the proportions of the rooftops, of the roofs. So basically this line will go like this, and this line, it kind of baffles me now what is happening in here, because this is like a really weird looking geometry. I guess it should be bigger. Huh. And these are the things that sometimes bring some problems to drawing. So what I want to do now, not necessarily in the order that you should be drawing all this stuff, because the order will like vary greatly for everyone. Some folks will just start with the perspective, some will start with like basic shapes or whatever. But if you will follow it more or less, you should be fine with everything that is happening in here. Okay, so with the ellipses, let me just where is the last ellipse? In here. Let me just remove or erase the back part of them so they won't be distracting. And now we have the top part. The top part shall meet somewhere in here with this rooftop. Now it's really buffing me because nothing is really like working together, and I don't really want to start this thing for the third time in a row. I have no idea why it is not working. And this may be really related, because what I want to do now, I take this guy and take this guy. And now I need to find this shape and I need to find this shape. So it shouldn't be a problem whatsoever, but it kind of turns out like my maybe this whole, let me just check it. And this is what happens when you try to use some shortcuts. Okay, perspective in here is wonky. Here is the culprit. So the perspective in here will go like this. This will go like this. Here it will like match. Oh, okay, now it's okay. It will go like this, and here was the mistake. It will match. But now the thing should be matching in here, actually. And this is... the whole ellipse tower needs to be a bit wider. Now it is too thin. Shit, too many lines on it already. Just mark the middle again. Okay, now I know where the middle part is. Now I will match the ellipses. The problem were the ellipses were too small, and this was causing me problems, and I had hard times identifying what is actually a problem. So basically the entire tower will be a bit wider. So the thing will go in here, will connect to the ellipses. It will go like this. Well, it will go like this in here. It will connect to the ellipses in here. And now the roof is still not matching, and I have no idea why. So I will... let me start over again. I guess this stream will be a bit longer. So instead of like trying to take a shortcut, then we will do it the right way. So maybe... it's kind of funny because like back in the days I remember I had no problems whatsoever with drawing this guy. And now all of a sudden it is problematic. Well, actually it's not that of a hard thing to draw. Whoops. Let me make it bigger so I will see it better. So I will turn off the perspective grid for a moment, and I would like to show you how this geometry actually works. So basically we have like a shape like this, and also this is a really cool thing, because if I have problems with it right now, it kinda means I must practice this type of things a bit more, and this is cool. So what is happening in here? We have like this type of a shape. This is our shape, and it will go in here and in here and in here and in here. And this is more or less this roof from the top. Now what I need to do is to draw an ellipse on the top, basically more or less going like this, and it will connect in those four points. So it will connect like this, and the whole thing will go more or less like this. This is how the geometry will behave. And I need to draw it in the perspective. So now let me do it in the perspective once again. Oh yeah. Oh wait, the Photoshop crashed once again. The new version of Photoshop is constantly crashing on the preview. Okay, right now. Let me do this guy once again. So I will push today for as long as needed to actually draw him nicely, because it will be bothering me way too much if I fail with it. So if we look at it, I guess the frontal part is a bit like wider than this part, so maybe this what was causing the problems. So at first I will draw a box. I won't really care about the proportions that much. I will cut them later, like adjust them later. And if something is not working, just don't be afraid to start over. This will happen all the time. So today it will be a stream about perseverance and about trying to draw this building. Boom. And this is also the problem that I have always with the Photoshop. Drawing perspective in Photoshop is extremely unpleasant for me. Like, maybe not unpleasant, but it's way more obvious in a sense. So now I will rotate this guy. Now I kinda feel it's a bit too long. So I will make it a bit shorter. Okay. And if it means I need to start over 3 times, I will start over 3 times in a row. Not a problem. Let me go with this guy, let me go with this guy. And once again, I will draw a square. And in this square, I will draw a shape that I have on the sides of this building. Make sure the perspective is in the middle of your layer. We'll go like this, and I want these things to happen. I will change it into a smart object. Again. And I will match the perspective. Also, this is the reason why I think for this type of a thing, sometimes drawing from imagination is easier, because you don't actually need to worry that much about drawing it perfectly. So, boom, like this. Yep, so yeah. Yep, there will be an skeleton on Monday. Whoops. So as you can see, after 1 hour of drawing, and pretty much nothing is done, and it happens. Okay, all this frontal part is not matched well. Should be a bit lower. And okay, all the 4 sides are in here. now let me draw the top part of the roof. I will use some colors because I can. So connecting the roof in here. There is a middle for it. And now, because I do have a middle line, let me select this guy, and I will start by selecting where the ellipse tower will actually be. So I will use the right part as my reference point instead of the frontal part, and this is the width of the tower that I want to have in here. So basically the ellipse needs to cross this point, turn off the symmetry, need to cross this point, and needs to cross this point. Now with the blue color, I will go with this point, and I want to match them in the perspective. Like this. I want to match them also in here, so I will see the thing. It fits. Now there is this rooftop part. And now this rooftop part needs to go a similar manner to this line, and it kind of suggests that the ellipse should be touching the thing in here. So it kind of might mean that the entire part is a bit too wide. So this is why it most likely was not working for me. I was looking at the wrong reference point, and because of it, I was not really knowing why it was not working. So let me select some lines. So later I will need to make a bit of a cropping. Now let me just go with this, with the middle part in here. And by finding a middle part in here, I know that this point will be exactly in here. So the ellipse will need to go through this point, and it will need to go through this point, as I can see it. And now the small building type of a thingy, the small rooftop will go in here. This will go in here. And these guys will be connected slightly by the ellipses. Go like this, and the small rooftop will be here. Okay, we are finally closing on the geometry problems that I encountered previously, and I had no idea what was not working. So now we can finally add ellipses, and we will make them tealish, teal without a fill. And time to draw an ellipse, and now we need to match it to basically go through these 2 points, because these are the points that I was missing previously. The red lines were the ones that were distracting me. So we are not searching for this point. We were actually searching for these points. And this is the width of, this color is way too bright. This is the width of our tower. And the ellipse, well, proportion should be like this. Yep. And now a bit more to the top. It will be slightly bigger. Now a little bit more to the top, it will be slightly bigger. A bit more to the top, slightly bigger. More to the top, slightly bigger. And now I will rasterize layers, press them down a bit, and I will bring down the color. So basically this is our tower that I had some problems with. This will be the middle part for it. And in my case, the tower is visible a little bit more from the below, but it's not that big of a deal. The base of the whole drawing now is finally looking fine. So problems solved. There were some like problems with the perspective and everything, but the tower now is finally looking good. So let me connect everything that is in here. So let me connect the entire drawing. Now I will make it black and white, and I will make it a bit thinner so I can start working on the actual proportions. So this part will be a bit shorter, as you can see. So I can basically follow all the lines that I have in here that I previously established until they go to this part. Now in the perspective, I pretty much need to follow all the lines. But what I am doing right now is basically I am cutting away the geometry that I do not need anymore. So basically from the front, when I had something like this, what I am doing right now is just cutting this part off. So I will make the proportions look better. So basically I want to have this shape only without the front. And this is exactly what I am doing right now in here. And this was the thing that was causing me some problems, and I was unable to see them previously. Now this part will be like in here. The frontal part of the building can be a bit longer, so this is not necessarily a problem. So the front basically will stay as it is. Only the side on the left will get trimmed. And now the part will go like this. This will go like in here. I want to note this part and note this part. Sometimes the thing that will happen is the lines will overlap each other. So just keep it in mind that this edge in here will overlap with the edge that is a little bit more in the background, because of the perspective, it should be a bit lower in here, but all the thickness and the perspective and everything pretty much makes it almost overlapping each other. Now I can add from here a width to it, so the edge will move slightly to the back in here because I cut out the frontal part. Oops. In here. Okay, and also this one will get a bit shorter in here because I had to cut it. Yep, in here with, whoops, like this, and like this, like this. And now if I turn off the background, basically we are left with something like this, which is not really that impressive. But basically this is the thing that we will be using for the rest of our drawing. So let me just mask a bit the lines, all the lines in here, to make it a little bit more easier to read, a little bit more clearer. And now I can start adding all the small details, all the smaller geometry that I see in here in the actual drawing. So this guy will be like this. Does it reach the end? It's hard to say. I would say it almost reaches the end, so I will also make it almost reach the end. Adding this part to it, adding the same part from the other side. Okay, we'll need to mark this guy in here with this small rooftop, adding a bit of an offset to it so it will have like this darker line underneath it. Boom, boom. This line will actually slightly be skewed because it's wrapping around the ellipses and everything. And now I can select the middle part of this whole church. Of course, I could draw like everything that is happening in here on the front and on the side on the flat drawing and then add it, like then adjust it, but I wanted to only use it as a reference for the geometry. Now I kind of also see the whole thing is a bit too narrow. It should be a bit wider. So what can I do with it is I can stretch the entire like canvas, because perspective pretty much works like this, and because of it the proportions of everything will kinda get adjusted to everything, so I will be able to work with it. So as you can see, a lot of back and forth is happening in here. It was not really that straightforward of a thing to happen, to draw. And it's kind of funny because it's not necessarily the hardest like shape, hardest building to draw, but it was causing me some problems. And as I said, I'm completely fine with it because it means I need to practice this type of things more. And I guess now the most annoying part is to add the stairs. So I'm first adding the geometry to the stairs, and later I will like draw them together. And now when I figure out the hardest part, like the actual geometry of everything that I have in here, now I can just add a bit more things to the drawing. And if something is really close to the perspective, you will really get away with just scaling things down. The perspective won't change that much. And now in here, also on top of this part, there is like an arc with the cross in here, so I will add the cross later. And the same things pretty much happen in here. There is this part, but in here we also have a window, so I guess this guy will go like this, like this. So what I'm doing right now is I'm marking all the stuff on the geometry, so later I will be able to fill them up with some paints and everything. And yeah, that's pretty much all. A really cool shape in here with the distracted parts of it. Adding the window. And now also I can start slowly adding some like rubbish around, because there are like some loose rocks and whatnot. Stuff in here that are happening to the geometry. And there are this... Oh, okay, this will be a bit thinner, a bit too thick, because on the side there are also the small roofs, I guess, or something like this. This part is a bit wide. I'll make it a bit shorter. Okay, so now what I really need to do with this thing is to actually at least sketch the environment for everything. So I will make the entire canvas a bit smaller, because now I kind of just want to mark what is happening in the environment. Like this trees happening in here, because soon I will be like painting on top of everything, drawing on top of everything with some lines. So I want to have like at least the general plan or what is happening in here. And the cool part is this like road or something like this. So basically, if I'm close to the building, I can just get away with like drawing some like horizontal and vertical lines. I mean horizontal like and tilted lines, so it will kind of look like it is in perspective properly. But the cool part is actually when the frontal, when this line actually starts, when the road actually starts bending a bit. So what I'm doing right now is I'm finding the point on the horizon line, I'm just matching the perspective of it, choosing a width for the road, and I'm creating new like perspective lines, new vanishing lines, new vanishing points for each segment of a road. And it kind of allows me to create this road. And if I feel the width is not right, I will simply rework it. So this is pretty much the way to add stuff to a drawing. It's a bit messy, but I hope you get the idea. This one will go to this point. So basically I created 3 different lines to make it a bit more clear. This is one line, the road, this is the second line. It's after like, whoops, after changing the width. Now if it will go like this, I can like make the road bend in this manner. Yeah, so it will go like this. Well, don't remove everything that I have in here. Now there are some stuff happening in here. Some like stuff laying on the ground. Some stuff in here. Ground. Parts of the road. A bit of some sort of a wall. So now I'm kind of sketching the environmental thingies again. I don't really want to focus too much on them at the moment because I'm not really finished with the drawing of everything. But I constantly keep in mind that, for example, this geometry in here goes like this, that the perspective in here wraps around the forms like this. And it's just like drawing casually. And the actually hard part of doing everything like by hand is the fact that you pretty much need to draw every single thing in here, so it will be much more time consuming than if you were, for example, just try to paint it or just to try to sketch it, because you need to figure out all this geometry like moment after moment. But as you can see, with some troubles, after 1 hour I managed to create a solid perspective base for it. And now I will show you a small trick that basically revolves around Let me search for the word. Projecting points, because this was the point that I was missing. Because if we look in here and if we actually count the amount of windows or the openings that we have in here, it suggests us that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 visible. So we can say this is like 12 windows, because usually if you can see 6 sides, it means the exactly same amount is like behind, because usually you're only able to see the half of a cylinder. So the logic behind it is, if this is a cylinder and there is like a middle point, if we see 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, like this, show like this, so we can see, like looking from this part, we can clearly see 3 points, so we expect another 3 to be in here, and we know this one is on the side, so we do not really count it. But if we were to see like this one, 1, 2, 3, and 4 in here, we will expect another like 4 to appear on the second side. So 1, 2, 3, and 4 will be in here. This is like, I don't know if it makes sense, but this is the way they told me how to think about how to find those points. So basically what I will do in here, I will create a polygonal tool. I will give it 12 sides. It can be a star, it's not really that big of a deal. I will only change the color for a red. I will make sure the star has the same width as it, and I could of course just press down the star and simply like make it fit the whole place, but what I want actually to do is I want to project all the points that I have in here to the actual perspective. So I will take the point A and simply project it all the way on my cylinder. And the thing that I really want to keep is that one of the windows will be exactly in the middle. So I can rotate it, I can match the point, and now it will assure me that one window will be in here. And now what I am doing is I'm projecting what I see in here on these walls. So basically these are the windows that I am able to see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 windows, and barely I can see the 6th one. So at this point we'll just to the bottom, just barely like hit the wall in here. And the windows in the background, I will see like this. They will project in here, in here, in here, in here, and in here. So basically this is the projecting points method, and it allows me to quickly create a solid perspective grid, because right now I will know that through the middle, okay, that this part will contain this pillar. Basically the middle parts of everything that I have drawn now will contain a pillar. Just keep in mind everything is in the perspective. So I am now adding all the pillars. And as you can see, it really matches with the thing that we have on our reference. And here, there will be like an arch. This arch should be a bit higher. Actually, having an ellipse in here would be really helpful, but since I already have like quite a lot of references, I can just sketch them. The next one will be in here, and between the red and the blue line will be the next pillar, so in here. And as you can see, this is this pillar that we can see just right there. Blue. Whoops. It will be, of course, a bit lower. The blue one is in here. So, boom, boom. Actually, this building is way harder than I expected it to be. I did not remember this building as being that complex, but at least I practiced drawing, which is always okay. And now I can select the, so I can sketch out the rooftop, and boom. The top part is done. So basically the entire, like, let's say, base for my drawing now I would consider as done, because I have every major element like in the drawing actually. So now I can remove, make the perspective whatever I just pressed. I have no idea what I have pressed. Okay. I turned the image into the gray. So it will be step backward, step backward, step backward. You gotta be joking me. View, histogram, not histogram, view, history. View proof setup. Okay, basically I pressed Shift Ctrl Y and it turned off the entire thing. Entire colors from the painting. I was not aware of this shortcut. What I wanted to do, I wanted to Ctrl Shift U, the background. So now, as you can see, we have a really solid base for our drawing. Now we can actually start making it look a bit more cooler. So for example, if I want to copy this type of a thing, as always, I will try to use threshold for it, because this way I can create like a visual reference for me, how I can apply like the dark tones into the drawing, so I will make it look like cool and fine and dandy and everything. But also the thing that you should also do that is extremely important is to use some references. So I collected some references from Pinterest to see how can I actually shade a drawing or a painting. And as you can see, a lot of different like cool ideas. I am particular like this example. It is kind of like sketchy. It is like marker like type of a drawing. I don't really want to do something like this. It is way easier to be done with like some fine liners and everything, but I also really dig the way that trees are drawn in here. I thought maybe today I would draw some trees, so I collected some references with some trees in there, but this is pretty much my benchmark for the quality of a painting that I want to achieve. So now I will start with actually blocking the background for everything that I have in here. I will fill it with like a really neutral gray, and I will simply choose a bit darker tone. Now I will kind of choose a brush with like this nice looking texture to it, so I can actually add a bit more things to the background, because I kind of want it to look like it was done with the markers. I can kind of make it look a bit dirty and everything. So basically now I am kind of like adding effects to the whole thing. And what I want to make now is I want to make the entire drawing a bit layers a bit lighter, so I will simply like connect everything and decrease the opacity for the whole thing. And now I will also take like a really solid brush. Thanks, Hasty Wolf. Like a really solid brush that kinda gives this like ink type of a feel to the drawing. And I actually will start pretty much doing everything. I will turn off the opacity because I wanted to have this like really heavy graphic feeling to it. And I will simply start doing the whole thing in this like really nice manner. So the cool part about drawing old buildings is the fact that you don't really need to be extremely precise with all the ellipses and everything. They can be like, the line does not need to be like this. It can be a bit more like this because it will kind of fit to the whole theme that you already have in here. And now, to get a little bit more familiar with the theme, I will simply try to like maybe not really, yeah, basically I will try to kind of copy what I have in the reference, so I will have a way better understanding of how I can simplify some shapes for my future drawings while actually trying to emulate an inking. So I will not try to be perfectly precise with everything. As you can see, I'm kind of leaving some strokes and marks and whatnot inside, like this black part of it, because I kind of wanted to have this like feeling of being kind of hand-drawn. So maybe even the opacity should be on, so I can actually play a bit more with the texture, because this brush has like a really nice texture to it. So I feel I can use it to my advantage with this drawing. Same for this brush. It has this like really cool texture to it. Maybe I will actually use this brush in a bit more because I just feel no, I prefer this one. What I want to make is I want to make this thing a bit lighter. And also in here you can see the differences in the perspective, and like actually the small differences in the perspective. The inside of my tower is rotated a bit differently because my perspective setup is slightly different. I place the building a little bit more on to the right side, so I see a little bit more of the left side of the building instead of like seeing it a bit more from the front as I have in the reference. But it's not a problem. If you actually understand what you are drawing or what you are painting, then you will be able to rotate things without many problems. But as you saw previously, I had some problems with drawing the entire thing. But yeah, without problems, drawing will be boring, so I welcome them a lot. I like having problems while drawing. If drawing will be way too easy for me, then what's actually the point of doing it? I won't enjoy drawing as much. Everything will go extremely smoothly. The only thing that I don't like in the reference, how it kinda interpreted all the roof tiles and everything. I don't feel it kinda does justice to the roof tiles, so I will try to use some like lines and everything to kinda suggest that the roof tiles kinda have some structure to it and everything. Yeah, thanks a lot, Hasty Wolf. Actually, the attitude, I think, is the most important thing if you are going to be an artist or whatever. Like, if I were to get angry if something is not really working with me, I will end up this stream like an hour ago, because this is when I started to have some problems with it. But I guess this is also a nice lesson for some. Like, you can actually see that even someone who sometimes may appear like knows everything about the topic, because I know a lot of folks who are watching the videos kinda gets the impression that, oh, this someone is teaching it, so he must know everything. I guess it's actually a nice thing to see someone struggle, especially since a lot of people just like to see people fail, myself included. So I guess it's add credibility to the art. And also, one of the things that I really always hated in every single tutorial that I was watching on the YouTube was that it always appears so effortless for the artist. And this is like the biggest lie ever, that artists that do videos and everything do not struggle with the drawings. They do, but you can edit a lot if you are actually like editing your videos and trying to remove parts that were like bad and whatnot. So yeah. But I have to admit, it was a bit stressful at the beginning. Oh, and also in here, this is also why I love this brush, because it allows me to create this like hatching thingies to kind of add like a shade, like additional details to the surfaces. And usually when I'm drawing like traditionally, I prefer to avoid doing this type of things early on. I prefer to like first establish the whole thing from top to the bottom. A really cool detail in here, and only later to add like the small details like these, like small textures and whatnot. But since this is a digital work, I have no problems with it, because I can always go back to it and like rework it later, so I won't really care that much. I really actually like this heavy dark shape of the drawing, and in here also you can see this thing that I was talking about in the previous video. As you can see, there's like a lot of like small highlights happening on the edge of the rooftop, so it's not actually like dark. There's like a lot of stuff happening in here, the small highlights that actually create this feel of believability to it, if this is the right word. So actually not even being perfect with this type of stuff might actually help your drawing, because usually a secret that lies in creating a believable drawings is not in having a perfect geometry, it's about having those small imperfections that kind of suggest some things. We usually prefer having things a little bit more imperfect in our artwork. So don't be afraid of sometimes like on purpose destroying some edges or whatnot, so you will be able to actually later improve on them. And since this is a digital, as I said, I can do pretty much whatever I want with it. I will also take advantage of the fact that I can draw something as a black and later remove the dark parts with the eraser. It's a thing that is kinda impossible to do in the traditional medias. I would have to use like a white crayon or something like this to add a white thing to already black surface. So sometimes I will draw too much just to erase it a bit later. Yeah, it is forgiving. Yeah, it is forgiving. But to be honest, if I were drawing traditionally this type of a thing, with some fine liners and everything, and markers, I will be really finished like half an hour ago or something like this. I would say actually drawing in the digital medias, in my case at least, is way harder, and I kind of feel limited. I don't know why. I probably it's just like something in my brain that does not really allow me to like go completely like to feel the complete freedom in the drawing. But I usually when I'm drawing digitally, I feel really like limited. Most likely it's because I paint much more in digital. I don't draw that much in digital medias. I usually draw only in traditional medias, but I guess it might just mean I lack kind of experience in drawing in digital. So yeah, but that's true. Digital medias usually are really forgiving. Generally speaking, they have like different tool, different problems with the tool that you can kinda encounter. I'm using this guy, like the old vacuum intuos. Most likely it has some things to the fact that I am not actually looking on what I am drawing. I was using a Cintiq for like a really short period of time because a friend of mine had a Cintiq or still have a Cintiq, and then when I was just like testing it, I really enjoyed it. But I got so used to like drawing and painting and actually not looking at my hand. I don't think it is a problem for me anymore, but most likely maybe I will just feel a bit easier in terms of drawing if I had a Cintiq or something like this. To be honest, Cintiqs are extremely expensive, and I don't really see myself like buying one because I'm not really sure if they are worth. Yeah, I don't like feel like changing. I really enjoy drawing on this tablet. I just feel it's like a really good tool in my opinion. There's like no need for me to change it if it's working. So if it will break down, and I hope it won't, like in the next 5 years or so, then most likely I will like switch maybe to a Cintiq, but I will see. I actually prefer working on a huge screen with like this medium-sized tablet. It just seems a bit more natural for me. Also, if anyone has any questions, even related to this thing or to a different topic, feel free to ask. Because as I said, I don't think I will end up the stream until I'm not finished completely with this drawing. So I will spend a bit time in here, I guess, today. Especially since on Monday I was not present, so it can be like the stream can be a bit longer. So actually I finished a bit of a job that I had to do today, so a break will be a nice thing to actually have. If we can call drawing hard things a break, but since I enjoy them, I guess I can. Actually, extremely cool thing that is happening in here is the fact that the background is darker than the building itself. So all the things happening in the background kind of cut out the silhouette of a building from the background. This is something that I really like about this thing. I guess I want to kinda simulate the same thing, that the background is darker. It actually can really help me to quickly push the rest of the drawing in a really nice direction, because the environment is quite simple. It's not as demanding as the building. So yeah. Not to say that the building is really demanding, but definitely it was causing some problems. And also the cool part of drawing things like this is the fact that you really need to understand how to draw certain like textures to achieve a certain feeling. So for example, with all the things that I have on the reference that I prepared for myself, I have a really good like reference on how to draw a texture of a rock by actually using some like inks and stuff similar to inks. So later when I will paint, actually I might be able to emulate this texture in a bit nicer manner, and this will allow me to simplify all my drawings and all my paintings a bit more, because I will suggest more things just with the texture. And if you can suggest a lot of things with the texture, then you will paint way quicker, because you don't actually need to include that many details. And soon I will show you, or actually now I will show you a painting done by a friend of mine, by Konstantinos Skanteridis, that pretty much proves this point. I plant everything, stonks. As you can see, you don't necessarily need to know how to paint a trees to actually paint a trees, or to paint how to paint a grass to actually paint a grass. Because if the shapes and the textures and the colors and the light is right, then not much of the details are needed for the painting or a drawing to look actually crazy good. So as you can see, this is actually mind-blowing, and he can get away with stuff like this, which is kind of unfair and crazy. But yeah, this just proves the point that if you can emulate the things, you are good to go, you are golden. Let me select this guy. Let me make it a bit bigger so I can see it in a nicer manner. And now I will try to copy the shapes. Yep, actually, Konstantinos Skanteridis artworks are really one of my favorites ever. Like, the way he paints and draws is mind-blowing. The quality that he's able to achieve is out of this world. And I was lucky enough to actually meet him and to learn a thing or two from him. So yeah, this is a crazy good thing. He's a crazy good artist. I will also later on the stream link like dash a link to his portfolio and everything, because if someone is actually not following Konstantinos artworks, this someone is like really missing on a lot of cool stuff, because Konstantinos knows his craft as not many does. There are stairs in here that I kinda want to emulate, even though I can't really see them that much, as you can see on the reference, but I would like them to be a little bit more clear. The fact that I have like reference looking like this on the right side does not necessarily mean I need to like copy it mindlessly. I still kinda need to verify it, because everything that is happening in here is still just like simplification done by the computer. So not everything needs to look like the computer suggests. but this is a really good reference point, so it will definitely allow me to craft a drawing quicker in a better manner, because it will kind of show me how I can interpret some shapes into other shapes. And actually this is also a really cool tip for any of you that who is willing to learn how to draw. Because I know it's easier to set to be done, but try to engage in some like art communities and everything. Make some friends, because like learning with friends actually is way more fun than learning without friends. Even if someone is like a total introvert, I still strongly believe like learning with friends, having like a similar like things to do is just much more fun. And in here also, for the thing that I'm doing right now, is I kind of want to suggest the slope on the ground by actually following with the crosshatch, with the like the hatching technique, by the following the direction of the ground. So I'm not drawing a ground vertically, I'm trying to kind of lay down the strokes, so it will suggest that the ground actually is like horizontal. Turn off the opacity. So by doing so, I can really suggest the perspective in here is like working. And for this type of a thing, you can even like follow the perspective and everything to make the whole thing read even better. So yeah, and also the thing that you can do in the Photoshop, because it's Photoshop, it allows you to, is to create like a shape, a pattern like this. I mean, a shape like this. Take an eraser. Select some heavily brushed textured brush to create like a texture. And now look, the magic happen. I can put it on the ground and I can distort it in a way that it will fit the perspective. So if I will like extend it, it will like fit, meet the horizon line. And now I can place it on the ground in a way that will suggest that this is a perspective. And now I can take an eraser and remove the texture from the places where I don't want it to appear, because this is what I can do. And our brain really likes this type of stuff to happen, because the texture is a really cool thing to indicate a space in a drawing, because we can see that this shape, for example, is a bit bigger, is a little bit more visible from the top, and that this texture in here, for example, that is like bending, so I can like select it, duplicate it, warp it. So what usually would be drawn now is kind of like generated or something like this. It works especially well for drawings that are kind of stylized like this one, because I could draw this type of a texture on the ground, but it will, to be honest, take more or less forever for me to implement stuff like this. So yeah. And for the small white squares in here, I also want to have them in a drawing, because they are a really nice looking detail. And if I erase them in a way that makes them look not put in the perspective, I can always rework it, because as it was said previously, digital is forgiving. It allows me to make things in a better manner, like in a different manner. Because traditionally I would have to like draw on top of these guys, and only then I would be able to, I just need to avoid them while filling the blacks and everything. So yeah. Add a texture in here. Now I kind of feel like using this texture all over the place. It's a really nice texture brush. Actually, if you were to download some custom brushes, most likely you will find this brush somewhere in some packs, because this is like the one of the most popular brushes out there, I would say. But yeah. Let me finish a bit more on the painting, on the building. Also, one of the cool reasons why you actually should draw in black and white, like using inks and everything, is the fact that it really heavily bases on like understanding the shapes and the geometry of lights and shadows, like on this graphic design part of a drawing. So also it might greatly benefit like your paintings, because you will have a better understanding of light and shadow. So actually doing this type of stuff quite often might be a really great help for you progress with your drawings. Let me go in here. If you have a texture, you can copy it, transform it, and skew it in a different place. You can like reuse your assets that you have in here. Just make sure they will look like properly placed in the perspective. And also what is really cool, because this style I think is cool, like I really enjoy usually drawing and painting in this type of a manner. What is really cool about it, the more you will do it, back in the days I used to only draw like with inks and everything, the better understanding of the shapes and the better understanding of like simplifying everything you will have. So it's kind of obvious at this point, but the more you will do, the better you will be at it. So just don't be afraid to actually experiment with everything that you do. And just try different things, different techniques. So for example, like combining different textures of different brushes might do wonders to your artworks. And after some time, maybe you will even discover some brushes that give a certain effects to a drawing or a painting. For example, I have some brushes that I really like using. This is one of them. It kind of allows me to like get this really soft type of. I think this is cool. But the more you will do it, as I said, the better you will be at actually understanding what is going on. And the cool part is I, by accident, at some point merged the layers with the perspective and everything, because I wanted to get rid of all the lines and all the perspective grids and everything from the drawing. And now I can do this because I merged the layers. So yeah, the more you do, the still you will be forgetting to keep your layers in order. Usually I like to leave all the like geometry stuff underneath the drawing or a painting, because it adds like a cool details. But in this case I wanted it to be separated, but now it won't be. I forgot about the layers to manage them nicely. And at this point it's just like adding and adding to the drawing and to a painting. To make life a bit easier on myself, I now will take this grace and I kind of want to emulate the shading technique that I have on my reference, because I really like how it looks with this like shades on the side. So I kind of want to add a bit more textured value to the building in a bit untidy manner, as I have it on the reference, because I think it looks really neat. And by actually adding some values to the painting, I will also increase the readability of it, because I will add more informations about the light to the whole painting. And the fact that it's like painted a bit untidily kinda adds some character to it, like this messy way of a drawing. So it's not that perfect. This is a thing that I really enjoy having in it. Even like leaving some of the lines in here, like just some construction lines, is a really cool thing. So as you can see now, by just kinda darkening the fronts and everything, the whole thing actually starts looking a bit better. It's like adding the small shadows and everything. It kind of allows some surfaces to glow. It allows me to add a bit more depth to it, because I can suggest now what is like lit, what is not lit, and whatnot. So this is a really cool thing to actually have. And if I will feel that the thing is a bit too dark, I will simply like select it, well, Control U it, and make the whole thing a bit lighter. So yeah. And what is the coolest part of it is I can actually build a silhouette of a background with it. So I can start adding the mountains in the background with some shapes. And then I can kind of remove from them. So instead of like only having lines to the background, I will now also have like the basic values out there. And it kind of allows me to draw in a bit looser manner, because now, as you can see, I do not necessarily need to finish everything, like to make it really like precise in the background. Now it naturally gets a bit more loose. Maybe not that loose, because I was using the wrong brush. But I hope you get the point. The shape. Also remember to save if you are drawing something, because Photoshop really likes to crash sometimes. And it will be a shame to lose like your body of work. But yeah. Kind of wonder how I should add all the textures on the walls, like on the mountains in the background. I guess I will kind of like use way too big brush to create a bit of like this blurry texture, and I will simply remove from it. I always like this effect of having like a blurry textures that are in the front of something. I don't want to have necessarily like a really deep lines. Boom. Yeah, but actually the hard part now maintaining, like, is deciding where or how the detail should look like on the mountains. This is the hard part now. Which basically means I should study drawing mountains a bit more. And what I want to do now is I actually want to increase the amount of details on the main building. So I'll add a new layer, and now I will simply start drawing some like rocks and stones and some like details that will kind of make the building look a bit nicer. Because on the references you can see the bottom part is almost entirely hidden in the shadow. I like this shape that is happening in here. I like that this is like a deep shadow in here. Maybe not that deep. And I would say adding all these small like textures is actually the hardest part of a drawing, because you really need to interpret how you should draw all the things that is happening in here. Usually if you are drawing like doing a really like a solid geometrical piece, you will have all this line on this construction lines underneath it, and it will kind of take care of the details, of the small details. But since I erased some of them, now I do not necessarily have the same like possibilities. So also the thing that I can do is I can like select a darker tone and actually suggest some like rocks and whatnot to happen on the building. So you can see the texture, some rocks, just because they will be like slightly, like really slightly painted as the texture. And usually if you want to add this type of a detail to your building or whatever, add it in places like doors or near windows or whatever, so you can kind of visually glue them into the walls. So instead of like placing them in a different like random places, try to kind of add them in like the corners or in the places that actually convey some additional informations. In here I also noticed I'm missing this thin dark line on the top. And sometimes also adding some lines to some of the rocks and stones or whatever that you will have in here. It will also be a really nice touch. If you are drawing or painting anything like it, remember like actually using textures to your advantage may be a huge help, because the more you will combine your things together, the different aspects of your drawing, the better the result you might get. And you simply need to just experiment with different outcomes. You need to see what works, what does not work. So as you can see, adding all the textures really brought a lot of cool details to the painting, to the drawing, or however to call it. And I can like test things like this, so actually shading stuff that is on the side. Photoshop decided to crash once again. Adobe really needs to get its shit together. Okay. As I said it many times, new update basically brings like tons of new errors. What I want to try now is to add like a shading with some lines to the side of the building. So I will see if it actually actually makes the whole thing looks nicer. I actually kind of like how it looks, like these vertical lines. Yeah, I like how it looks. It's not necessarily the best type of a detail to add, but I enjoy it. Actually, now it looks even better without all these markers, so I will like make it way lighter. Just suggest some different planes to it, and I will keep working on the textures to draw them by hand. Now basically, as I said, this is the part where I can sit for like 10 hours, 12 hours, 14 hours and simply draw all the small lines until I reach the point where I feel like, okay, it's done, it's finished. I don't really feel like drawing much more. But I feel it actually looks good enough. And I guess in like 15 minutes I will try to wrap this up. So I will see how it looks in like more or less 15 minutes. So yeah, for all the small like vegetation around, can like simply draw some like grass pieces. Even if they are not there, adding some like grass to your drawing, like some vertical lines that suggest a grass. I entirely forgot about like these walls in here, but I won't be adding them. I don't really like them. You can simply just like put this type of lines. And this is kinda what proves my point, I guess. Even if you are struggling with a drawing, keep pushing with it. And at some point you will maybe manage to draw something decent. I was really thinking I will not manage to draw it at the beginning because I had so many different small problems. After I got rid of them, because I simply sit back and try to analyze what was not working. I searched for the problem, I identified it, and kinda overcome it. I managed to make a drawing that I really enjoying. So as you can see, not stressing about failing allowed me to actually do a drawing that I really enjoy. That will also make a really nice miniature for the next stream, for the next video. So a profit after a profit. Everything is cool about this one. Also a really cool thing is because I often, when I hear someone says that he knows everything, how to draw and everything, really often happens when with like the folks that want to enroll into the courses that we teach in the art school, that they say they are like semi-advanced, they know how to draw and everything, and then it kind of turns out they do not really know how to draw or anything. So always like keeping like the idea of what you can and what you cannot do at bay, at hold, or something like this, like to not be cocky with your skills, is a good idea, because you may really like overestimate your skills. I would say drawing this type of a thing shouldn't be a problem at all for me. It turns out it was. So yeah. rooftop. If you want to add a shading for a rooftop, you basically go from the top and you just follow the curvature of the roof with like the lines and everything. So this is how it looks like. Parts like this I will kinda expect to be a bit darker, since there's like a lot of geometry happening in here. Really cool lines, actually. We'll try to introduce them to the painting, to the drawing. And since all the perspective grid is long gone, now I kinda need to use what I have, well, in here. So if I want to actually draw some like stones and whatnot, I just kinda need to use all the information that I have around me, because I really feel actually like adding some lines for the stone and everything can add a lot of cool things to the drawing. And this is actually what is kinda funny about the art streams. I can imagine how boring they are in a sense, because not much is really happening around the whole stream. Like, to be honest, I could, I guess, draw the entire thing and be completely silent while doing it, because I don't usually talk to myself when I draw. And also, this is kind of a funny thing to do, because sometimes when I have some problems, I really need to focus on it. And only then I usually actually talk to myself, where I need to kind of bounce off the thoughts from something. So actually resolving problems on the live stream is way easier than it normally is for me. It's one, I have like the stress of not delivering to the stream, and I always would like to deliver nice things if possible. And also I can talk freely, because I was reading on different tutorials and everything on how to be a streamer. You should always talk and you should always be engaging and whatnot. So it's kind of funny to like force myself to talk all the time. It's definitely a really weird feeling. Actually, it turned out to be a really great exercise to be honest, because I remember when I was like recording for the first time ever, I tried to like record and talk at the same time. So I want to make a voice over a video. I will like make like an art while doing a voiceover at the same time, and it was really stressing me out. I had to deliver the best thing that I possibly could. It turns out it was impossible for me to deliver a good thing this way. But when I was later just recording and I knew it will like go on the YouTube or something like this, like the stress of knowing that it will be in the YouTube actually forces me to have way better performance that I usually have. So it kind of motivates me to produce a better artwork, because I know it will be easier for me to simply make everything right instead of like commit mistakes and later trying to edit them from the video. Because if there is something that I don't really like, is cutting the video and editing everything after the fact, after the video is done. So it's kind of funny how this stress factor kind of helps me focus on the work. Yeah, an area that needs to be improved is in here. And I strongly believe even this photo is from Wiki Commons. Actually, I believe exactly the same photo is used in the school where I am teaching with, because we have like a tutorial with exactly this building. And as I said, I don't remember what building it is. It's kind of embarrassing because I used to be like an architecture student, and I know this is like one of the buildings that you should know, but well, I forgot. Take this guy, let me press everything a bit more. No, not like this. Let me increase the canvas size. Is the canvas line on the drawing? It is. Okay, kind of want to increase the canvas even more so the cross is not touching the top part of drawing. And I will be extremely lazy, and instead of drawing like a new line, I will simply like take the old one and move it in here. I will remove this line, and in the background I will take this guys and I will paint something that kinda will look like clouds, so a bit darker tones here and there and whatnot. Boom. And a really subtle thing of darkening the foreground. I will gently distort this texture, and I will reduce the opacity to a bare minimum, so it will only make the bottom a bit darker. Boom. This is the whole drawing. Yeah, no problem, Leonard. To be honest, I don't know what I was like trying to achieve in the end, but since I am drawing all the like Diablo monsters in like this black and white type of a style, I decided to just roll with it. And yeah, to be honest, I strongly believe it will be just way easier to start without all this like strict, in a sense, geometry, and to simply just go for it and just draw it. Then I guess I will like do it 2 times faster. But since I treat it as a practice, I don't really see a problem with actually practicing something, then removing it, and then just turning it into something else. And yeah, I guess it looks kinda okay. It's not definitely my best drawing, but I guess it's fine. Now I just want to rework every single thing in here, because I don't really like it, but yeah. Don't like this shape. So yeah, a cool trick if you want to make your drawing look instantly cooler. You just go to the Google, you type old paper texture, you search for old paper texture. I will now duplicate everything and combine it to one file. And you bring it on, you make a mask, you stretch it in a bit, you reduce the colors, and you can play with this blending modes. You cannot see the window, but if you press double, let me just show you the window. I need to like take a screenshot of it. You have this type of a window, and if you will play with this like sliders, basically grabbing the white one will remove the white textures, like the white parts from the texture, and grabbing the thing on the left will remove the black things from the texture. And by pressing Alt, you will make like a smooth transition with it. So usually the thing that I suggest you to do is to like grab the one on the right and just play with the sliders to simply add some textures to it. So you will basically add like additional value that was not in there. So it's like a small detail, but it helps. And now it looks instantly cooler. So without it, with it, boom, it is cool. So yeah, I guess this will be all for the stream today. Maybe I will need to squish it a bit. Yeah, thanks a lot, Leonard. Actually, there are some like really cool books. I wanted to talk with them about them in the next video. But I will let me just place the covers in the video. This is one of the books. It's extremely cool, especially if you are going to draw architecture, because it actually allows you to draw in like an extremely messy manner, but make it look cool. So let's say this kind of looks like shit in terms of like being a car, but together it really makes a really nice drawing. Actually, these guys are from this book. I strongly believe they are from it. And the second book that I really highly recommend, where is the old one, is Drawing with Markers book. Is, let me search for the cover, Sketching with Markers. Is this one. I even wanted to create an Amazon account and link some affiliate links at the bottom part of the video, but I failed at making the links and everything, so yeah. My last name is Szczygieł. Szczygieł basically is, it's a bird that recently when I was watching the video was as a top 1 bird with the most beautiful like voice. And actually I will be making a video on how to paint birds. I will paint a szczygieł, and in English language it's called goldfinch, I believe. So it's goldfinch, and in Polish it's szczygieł. This part is like sh, this is ch, and this is gieł. Y and gieł, szczygieł. So yeah, so these are like the 2 books that I highly recommended. If you want to get better at drawing with markers and sketching and everything, these are the books that I like roughly gone through, but I have them, and I sometimes when I draw, I just like go through them to search for some references and everything, because they're like really great books. So yeah, this will be all for today. This is the final drawing that I failed to start 3 times or 2 times, but in the end I somehow managed to pull it off, and now it looks kinda okay. So thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you maybe learned something new. Also, if someone is new in here, there is a Discord server link in the description, so if you would like to go to the Discord server, where I basically have some rooms where you can post your art and just talk to different folks and whatnot. And also in there will be all informations about all the live streams and all the videos that I will post. So just feel free to go in there, and yeah, it will be fine. Let me only just sharpen a bit this edge because it is annoying the shit out of me. So yeah, the curse of someone who is drawing. I would think about it for like the next 2 hours if I would not make it a bit sharper in here. Okay, yeah, so this is all. And the last thing also, before I end, to make your drawing a bit cooler, if you want it, you can go to filters, sharpen, and smart sharpen, and if it loads, if you will like play a bit with the sliders, you will manage to like sharpen the entire drawing to kind of give it this small glow around all the textures. So sometimes it might benefit your drawing, depends if you won't overdo it, because it might create stuff like this from stuff like this, but you just need to experiment with it. it can be a cool addition to your painting. Okay, so goodbye. Thanks for watching and have a nice day or evening or wherever you are. See ya.